What's going on, Doc?
What's up? How's it going, Doc?
Just if that.
Can you inform me of your prognosis?
What's up, Doctor?
Doctor. Hello, Doc.
Hello, Doctor. Hey, what's up, Doctor?
What's up, Doctor? Medical professional.
What's up, valued medical professional?
What's up, essential medical professional?
What's up, essential worker?
Thank
you
you
so much for your service.
For straight up saving people.
Yes.
Hello, world of YouTube. Welcome to a very special list video. As you can see, I'm not at home. How did I get into this studio space? I got my buddy John here.
Hello.
He put this shirt on, and I was like, that's a good idea, because we're going to talk about comfort shows. These aren't on our lists, but they're both great comfort shows as well. So, like, my whole mantra for this year, especially after a certain point, was I need some comfort.
We're all looking for a sense of comfort in a way, you know, like some sort of escapism that's needed, something that you can turn to that's reliable.
Yeah.
It's an old friend you keep coming back to time and time again.
Absolutely, and it's something that you can just relish in. So today we're going to sit down, kind of like what I did with my co-op games list. I'm just sitting down with a very good friend of mine. We're just going to talk about comfort shows. We technically have 5 and 5, and we got a special one, because that number one, I couldn't do it on my own.
No. You know that I can't do this one on my own either.
Exactly.
We got to team up, and we're gonna
break it down. But I'm not gonna spoil it. Instead, we're just gonna start with. I don't have a necessarily particular order. I just kind of have a flow I wanted to talk about with some increased intensity for sure. But yeah, let's go ahead and start it with what would be my number 6.
Win this item, and you can force one of your opponents to wear this masher on their dominant hand through the entire round.
Oh my God.
Do you like cooking shows?
I dabble. I've watched a bit of Kitchen Nightmares.
Yeah.
I've watched a few other shows here and there. I like Hot Ones.
Hot Ones is fantastic. Now, in the veins of like cooking competition shows, I feel like nothing is any more entertaining than Cutthroat Kitchen. It's a cooking show that I will literally put on whenever the hell I want. I could be in a fugue state, and I would want to watch Cutthroat Kitchen, just because I love the idea of everybody starting off on like an even field, and you get the chance to just dick someone over for the dumbest reason. You don't even know if there's going to be something worse around the corner, but you're like, you know what? They need to cook on a pan that looks like it was fed through an iron grate, smasher. They need to make an omelet with that. And there's so many iconic challenges. Alton Brown's a delight, and it's just a show I could easily watch anytime, anywhere. And now we're gonna open up with John's first pick, which
It's a tower of dreams, real love bursting out of every scene.
Days go by. It's the bigger love of Carl Winslow's family. That's the term. We just play that under an actual clip from the show.
Absolutely.
Family Matters for me was a show I started watching very early on in my life because it debuted before I was born.
Yeah.
But it got into syndication pretty fast, and you could find it on Nick at Night. You could find it on ABC Family back when it was ABC Family.
Probably now on TV Land.
Yes, probably so, making me feel super old.
Same.
But I was really a fan of, like, obviously how down-to-earth the actual family itself was, and then there was the character of Steve Urkel. And it's just like, you know that there's going to be shenanigans, and you know that it's going to resolve by the end of the episode, but you're there for the heart, for the,
absolutely.
The way that they ebb and flow off of each other. The cast had a lot of chemistry.
There's an inherent charm in this brand of sitcom, because I also like Family Matters. I do like seeing the Winslow family just cut a rug,
Absolutely.
But like, I think there's an inherent charm to it too. It's cheesy, but you know what? It needs to. I like some cheese in my comfort.
Sure. Absolutely. If I'm needing a comfort day, I will also have cheese with me, so why not get the cheese on TV?
Exactly.
And there are a lot of plot holes. There's a daughter that completely disappears in, like, season 4. It is never mentioned again. Things happen, and it's like, what happened to her? But, it's fine.
It's whatever.
They did that on Happy Days back in the day. We could do it on Family Matters.
Exactly.
People disappear. It's a fact of life.
Plus, how can you hate that theme song?
No, Absolutely, it's a total banger. Everyone knows it. Days go. And it's just when it comes on, like it's not one of those intros where you're like ready to. If you're on streaming, you're ready to click skip intro. No, you let that thing roll.
Yeah, you let it roll. You let it roll. You let it ride, and you see Steve Urkel turning himself into like smooth talking lover man.
Yeah,
I remember
exactly.
that subplot from the show.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Stefan Urkel.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. With the funky, fresh vibes, we loved it. I cared about the characters to a certain degree. I loved Eddie, Laura, Steve, Carl. You know, there were a lot of great characters in that show. And again, the cast together is just kind of it was dynamite.
Yeah. Did you know that Steve Urkel, Jaleel White.
Yes, Jaleel.
Star of Big Fat Liar.
Of course.
Yeah.
Also, Frankie Muniz.
Absolutely. But did you know that he also did voice work for Sonic the Hedgehog?
I did not know that at all.
He voiced Sonic in both of the Saturday morning cartoons.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of cartoons, here's a comfort pick for me. And I'm talking like the Fox run. Because like I appreciate that they got a second run
with Comedy Central.
Comedy Central. That's cool. I watched some of the movies, but that Fox era, I've seen maybe more times than I can count. Because, hey, I'm a kid who can't sleep. What's on Adult Swim? Oh, Futurama.
All day, all night.
But I remember when Futurama also came out too, and I liked The Simpsons as a kid. But I was in that like middle ground. Like our buddy Crash, he loves The Simpsons. I really like The Simpsons, but like Futurama kind of caught my eye a little more.
I'm completely with you. It's Matt Groening's, but probably his best work.
I would agree, and I think it's because like him, David X. Cohen, like they knew how to write a good show.
Yeah.
Like the jokes are both really hilarious for how absurd they are, but really clever at the same time.
Oh yeah, there's layers to so many of the jokes. I was watching Futurama recently, and I was like, damn, it's been a while, and I forgot how multifaceted so many of these jokes can hit you on.
Yeah.
And it can take a second to click sometimes, and I love that kind of smart humor that's also easy to digest.
No, absolutely. And I mean, similarly to a lot of the shows we'll talk about, I'm sure, but like the characters are great. Like Fry is a relatable moron.
Sure.
Bender is a relatable robot.
And an asshole.
And an asshole. You know, sometimes you just have an asshole around. I feel like it's as strong as like a lot of the primary characters from The Simpsons.
Absolutely.
You know, I feel like the core dynamic is completely different, but I feel like it works for like a show that tries to tackle different things. Richard Nixon, for some reason, is just like a recurring character.
Yeah.
That's hysterical.
There's so many oddities to it in the way that they do things.
Yeah.
It's great. Like the heads and jars.
The jars and stuff. Yeah. Well, and I think that's what put it on like Adult Swim more so than Fox, because like a lot of that stuff I feel like maybe didn't fit late Sunday, like primetime Sunday.
That's why that and Family Guy got canceled initially at Fox.
Yeah. Because, hey, Fox doesn't actually know.
Right, and they don't actually care, but oh wait, it's popular on Adult Swim and selling millions of DVDs and adoring fans at Comic-Con and everything. Oh, I guess we'll bring this back from the dead in some way.
Yeah, which again, I'm very happy it did. I've seen the ending, and I think that it's a really good ending. It's a good show in a different way than like a Family Matters is, in the fact that it's still comfortable, but it's more, I guess, in just the rewatchability of it.
There is just a timeless feel to it. And speaking of timelessness, my next pick.
The Andy Griffith Show, starring Andy Griffith.
Yo, spot me, Johnny. Spot me with that whistle. Can we get a trap beat on there? For me, the Andy Griffith Show was something that I was just introduced to so early on, like earlier than Family Matters, because it's seen as like it's rated G, it's all audiences, and it's just kind of got that classic golden era TV that they would refer to. A lot of those shows, so many of them are so corny in hindsight, right? Like they rely too heavily on slapstick, physical comedy, whatever it might be. But I feel like you look back into a lot of those shows that I was almost made to watch by the fact that my dad watched TV Land exclusively. And back in those days, they aired like super old shows.
Yeah, they aired like
Green Acres and
Green Acres,
the Beverly Hillbillies and all of that stuff. Stuff that's like super corny and I like have a hard time going back to now because it's so silly. But the Andy Griffith Show for me, like you with Futurama, you've seen it countless times. I've seen every episode of the black and white episodes, like the first 5 seasons, more times than I can count on both of my hands. And I still can go back and get something from them. I feel like there was like a heart of gold behind a lot of it. There was, genuine love between a lot of the characters. And that was infectious to the point where it caught on to the audience. And I think that it kind of transcends the era that it came from because a lot of the things that were packed in there, and even some of the things relating to, like, you know, having a moral compass and, like, seeing, like, you know, small repercussions for things like bullying or, you know, stealing or whatever it might be. There were some life lessons that were packed in there in ways that weren't necessarily shoved straight down your throat. And it was genuinely funny in a lot of ways too, like characters like Barney and the way that he interacted with the main character, Andy Griffith, you know, Andy Taylor on the show. Kid actors, it can go one of two ways.
Yeah,
They're either,
of course.
they can grate on your nerves every second they're on screen, or they can actually add something.
Yeah.
And the character of Opie, who was Ron Howard, you know,
Yeah,
played by Ron
yeah,
Howard,
yeah.
that can add something. And look what he did. He went on to become the narrator of Arrested Development.
Michael and women? A Daddy, that's what I was just telling him.
Look, I haven't found the right girl.
When I asked if you wanted to do a list on this subject, that was a choice that I thought was really interesting. Just because, like, when it comes to TV shows, we do talk about some stuff, but, like, nostalgia like that I think is really interesting to, like, gravitate towards, because
Sure.
I feel like I don't have nearly as many experiences with the Andy Griffith Show. I've maybe seen a collective like 3 times, but I can appreciate that sentiment of really really cherishing the value that it presents well-roundedly.
Sure, it was like my childhood. It was like on TV every day at 5:30.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it was just a staple. It kind of helped raise me in a way, and I have an appreciation for the fact that that was a thing, and is still a thing in many ways, that like bonded like me and my dad.
Well, speaking of stuff that is like on at the same exact time, at the same exact channel, for every like old person, man, this next pick is exactly what in the same vein.
Yeah, we got trouble in the Capitol here. You're not going to get any more help, I'm sorry. And to say the least, a lot of things end with an ER, but talk it out. You've got 10 seconds. You never know what may come spilling out. Good luck.
Gopher, Hoover.
What?
Say it with me now. Wheel of Fortune!
From Hollywood, it's America's Game, a show the whole family can enjoy.
I could watch Wheel of Fortune literally like on a 48-hour loop probably. Not only because it's a legacy show, so it's been on for so long you could find new episodes of that, but like just the inherent charm, every single puzzle of wanting to solve it yourself. As a guy who happens to like words a lot.
You're like racing to solve
Yeah,
it right
no,
there in
absolutely.
real time.
Sidebar here. Obviously, Cas Boys, we've played it before.
You spelled sugar wrong, you goddamn moron!
But the show itself as a foundation, I think is just also just so rewatchable because the absurdity within like the game show presentation, like it's very much of the same era of like Price is Right, where everything is so like almost classic.
Yeah.
It's very vintage, even though it has some modern updates to it. The overall presentation still feels tied to that like golden era of game shows.
Sure.
Which I really appreciate. As somebody who grew up and watched game shows about as much as like syndicated television, I also value them in a very comfort sort of way. You know, that 1-2 punch of Wheel of Fortune, I would argue, is one of the definitive staples of American television.
Yes.
And is easily like one of the best like 1-2 combos that TV has ever brought to people.
Absolutely. It's in that primetime format where you know exactly what you're getting into. They don't deviate from the formula, but you're still invested to the point where you're wanting to solve the clues. And it's like from an early age. You know, I saw my grandparents watching Wheel of Fortune, but
Same.
I felt interested enough in the clues once I got to a certain age where I was like, okay, can I solve this? Can I play along? And I started to like things like that, and it made me more interested in word puzzles or just even word searches, things that involve that.
And I think it's almost helpful in that regard to see it from like a young age with like, your grandparents for that very reason alone.
It's like,
you know,
let them pass it down to us.
Yeah, it's like ye olde edutainment for those that liked learning before putt-putt made it cool. You know, I value Wheel of Fortune a lot as like a commodity of television.
I just appreciate the fact that, you know, it gets the audience into it at home. You know, everybody feels super animated, just like
who lives in the middle of nowhere with her husband, Eustace Bang. But creepy stuff happens in nowhere. It's up to Courage to save his new home.
You stupid dog.
You made me look bad.
with that.
There were so many great running gags on Courage that I think that's part of the reason why I'm putting it on the comfort list, because for me, that was probably my favorite show that I just continually came back to because I thought it was super funny, but I also would get scared by it. There were genuinely unnerving moments that pushed the limits of what children's entertainment on Cartoon Network would actually be.
Which, I mean, I'd agree, because, like, Scooby-Doo, another horror-adjacent show, this feels like the sort of overall, like, an evolution of what, like, that show, not just because dog's scary, but, like, the type of horror that I feel like is represented, it is almost indicative of, like, the scene at the time.
Sure.
But in, like, a way that kids could, like, not necessarily be scarred with.
There were so many great moments that showed off how strong, like, their voice cast was.
Oh, yeah.
The writing, the pacing. I mean, they were cramming everything into 11-minute episodes, and something like Night at the Cat's Motel.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
There was so much that was scary, but also funny moments that would lighten the tension at just the right time, with the music stings that would play, too.
Yeah, when also the overall animation style of it feels, again, very of its time, but in a way that, like,
I love it.
I love it so much.
It looks like amazing. I love going back to it. That's another thing, because there's things like from that similar time period, like Jimmy Neutron, that can be very hard to watch because they were experimenting and they were learning to get away from traditional animation, but they weren't quite sure how to do it and develop an own style yet. I think The Courage was great for not only its time in the late 90s and the early 2000s, but just now. And
I would say it bridged those eras almost, because it tried ways to and that's what I like about it. It integrates, like, stuff like still motion, like, pictures or, like, early CG in with this traditional animation style. The whole show has this tone of, like, uneasiness to it that I think I agree. Like, it's a great show. I'm a big fan of Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yeah, and you're always rooting for Courage.
Absolutely.
What shenanigans have Eustace and Muriel just been completely oblivious to, as somebody has inevitably showed up at their house in the middle of nowhere, and they've just gotten themselves into something, and they've been scammed by somebody, and now, oh no, they're being kidnapped, they're being taken away, and Courage is gonna somehow save the day, maybe?
Or things are just gonna get weird and then randomly be better, like the eggplant episode.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just
like, that episode?
What happened there? But then we're just all good. The next 11-minute block.
Yep. It's honestly, I feel like it's up there with, like, one of the best of that era of Cartoon Network.
Absolutely. It was stuck right there in the middle of two different animation eras.
Almost. Oh my god. Almost like.
Beat the question. You're not the boss of me now.
Yes, no, maybe.
Actually, speaking of They Might Be Giants.
Yes.
Who did a Courage the Cowardly Dog animated music video.
Connected.
Malcolm in the Middle. Frankie Muniz's debut, like, kicks door into stardom.
Where did that come from? The performances that he was able to give so young, too.
Yeah. You also had, you know, Hal,
Bryan Cranston. Heard of him? Walter White, maybe?
As far as, like, the sitcom, as it were, Malcolm in the Middle feels like almost an important, again, middle child, similar to Courage, between traditional multi-camera comedies and, like, single camera or documentarian style stuff that goes on today.
Yeah.
You know, sure, it had, one of the things I liked about it was more, as a kid, the story. As a kid who was kind of weird, like Malcolm, I related to that. I liked the representation of, like, relatively middle to lower middle class household.
Right. You know? But it didn't revolve around the fact that, oh, these people are, like, awful because of, like, their economic status.
Yeah.
It's like they can be awful because of the actions that they put out there, or they can have surprisingly sweet moments between each other where it's like they actually really do love each other.
There's a lot of really good, like, heartfelt moments amidst the attitude
and the
like,
chaos
and
of the family dynamic and Lois.
Yeah, and oh my, I actually adore Lois as a character the older that I've gotten.
Right, you, like, hate her, but you often understand the older that you get exactly why she's so driven to the points that of madness.
Oh yeah, when it's a show that, like, it starts in this very simple place, but I also just love how absurd the story gets. Like, yeah, they have this older brother who is in military school.
Right, Francis.
But then he leaves and goes to Alaska. And then he goes and works on this ranch for
Yeah, he's
a while.
on a dude ranch?
Yeah,
Like, what's going
it's
on?
such a, like, the character arcs in the show are also just really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's one of those shows that I know I've seen at least 5 times in full in, like, a sitting, and I've never gotten sick of it.
The side characters,
The side characters are fantastic.
Stevie,
Yes.
Craig.
Yes.
Craig is the creep. He's weird. He's in love with Lois, but he's, he adds a lot.
Yeah, he adds a lot to the show. A lot of Malcolm's friends from the Smart Kid class.
Sure.
The ones that come back, at least, throughout the years.
Yeah.
I love how their characters grow. It's in the similar vein of a show that we've talked about, that 70s show. It was from that era where just TV felt like it was trying to integrate more, I don't know, postmodernism is the way to do it, but like more of going against traditional sitcom norms, even if they included a laugh track.
Yeah.
And Malcolm is one of those shows that I feel like did it.
No laugh track, some dry humor in there, breaking the fourth wall with Malcolm.
With Malcolm talking to the camera, yeah.
Yeah, and just like you said, growing, evolving, and changing characters, moving them to different locations, which is kind of what a family that I'm familiar with in my next pick had to do as well.
Oh, really?
What does that mean? What does fold in the cheese mean?
He folds it in.
I understand that, but how do you fold it? Do you fold it in half like a piece of paper and drop it in the pot, or what do you do?
David, I cannot show you everything.
Okay, well, can you show me one thing?
Schitt's Creek is the newest show that either of us have on the list, as in it, like, debuted the most recent.
Yeah.
And it quickly became something that I just found so watchable.
Okay.
I think it's just extremely watchable, and again, at the heart of it all, I think the writing carries that show and it never slips throughout its seasons. It didn't overstay its welcome and decide, hey, just because we're getting more and more popular, like we're going to milk this out forever. Think like a Breaking Bad. They knew exactly when to pull the exit. And it's not that they could never come back, as like Breaking Bad had El Camino. There's other ways maybe to, check in on the story. But it had a progressive feel to it in many ways that still had a lot of great comedic moments in there that just consistently throughout the episodes, like, you just see the situations and the eccentric qualities of the cast and characters. Like Moira Rose, like, she playing off of her son, played by Dan Levy, David, and you've got the husband Johnny Rose, and that's Eugene Levy. I think that they're incredible comedic actors, and just seeing where Catherine O'Hara as Moira came from originally. I mean, she was in a movie like Home Alone. She was Kevin McAllister's mom. Yeah, exactly. She's been all over the place, but then to come in and absolutely kill it as that character, a washed-up soap actor star, like you come into a soap opera and you're like, where am I now? It's this whole new world, and it's a rich family that's flipped on their heads as they move to this small town of Schitt's Creek. And, you just have to see them adjust to life slowly and become a part of that town. It's just so easy to watch. It snaps in and out, and before you know it, the episode's over, and you're like, I'm ready to see another one. So maybe I'll watch 2 or 3 back to back.
Yeah. When you first watched the show, did you have that sort of draw to it, that immediate hook into you?
I think it was probably halfway through the first season.
Okay.
The first few episodes, not that they aren't good, I think that they are, especially like on multiple rewatches, but going back to it, I can see the fact that maybe it takes half of a season for me to like fully get its hooks in. But once it does, I think by the end of that first season, you're really curious to see what's happening with these characters. I love the sibling dynamic. I love the fact that they're, put in the situation, how is it going to play out? But it also doesn't feel like it's going to become this super tangled web that I have to think about a ton.
Okay. See, and that's because I've never actually watched Schitt's Creek, so I have like little context of like what the show is mostly about. I know that I think my mom watches it now. She started watching it recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's never one of those shows that I've actually watched. But I may have to be a boy and enter that world of the Schitt's Creek. Just similarly to how one boy encounters a world in my next pick. We're the king of the segues here on Viral Rack Channel.
Philly!
I've just loved Philadelphia my entire life because Boy Meets World, when you think about it, when I think about shows that were on when I was staying homesick from school and I was like, oh, this is like a wholesome family show. You know, it's got brothers learning lessons about growing up, love, loss.
Yeah, just in a lot of school problems too.
Yeah.
Things like, it would address everything from homework to, sneaking out. Like, there were all kinds of things.
Learning the value of $1. They had that episode with Corey and painting the fences.
Sure.
Yeah, this show it's so wholesome, but the fact that they take it the full 9.
Yeah.
From middle school through college.
They do not stop following the cast, and they let them grow, and the tone of the show adjusts as they grow.
Exactly.
Because kids at home are growing up too.
And that's one of the great things, because I actually recently started watching the first couple episodes, and I was like, you know what? This is fun like kids kind of way. And like you said, it grows into there's that horror episode.
Yeah.
Where a certain someone's killing everybody. And there's actually blood and stuff in it. It's actually got
Yeah, Dead Meat did a kill count on that.
Yeah, they did. I forgot about that. And then there was Sean, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a show that it grows as the viewer would have grown. But I feel like it retains its charm amidst rewatches because of how earnest and heartfelt a lot of the performances are. I love the cast of that show.
I do too. I think it does a great job in incorporating everybody, and also, like we've talked about with some of these other shows like Malcolm, as they have to keep finding new ways for a character to be involved with the cast.
Yeah.
Well, you've got the character of Mr. Feeney, who always finds a way.
Apparently, he was just meant to teach these kids how to be adults.
Yes. And also be their neighbor.
Could you imagine if your teacher kept I would be concerned.
I would too. It's Mr. Feeney, it was great in 6th grade and all, but we are in our 3rd year of college and you are right there.
How are you licensed to teach this much?
He's doing a lot of online night school.
Apparently.
In the 90s.
On dial-up. He's doing night school on dial-up.
That's the dedication that Feeney is going through to actually portray that role.
No wonder he has that much investment on all of their relationships.
Yes.
You know?
Oh yeah. He's always ready to dole out advice.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think in the modern age he would just try to Facebook stalk them and
yeah.
they just keep blocking his profile?
Absolutely. It's like Feeney. How many profiles are you going to create here?
Except for Eric. Eric's the one chasing him.
Yeah. He's just doing the Feeney call.
Feeney. But he's poking him and doing
it. He can poke somebody on Facebook with a Feeney call. Yeah. It's a great setting. It's a great show. It's got a great cast. And I really love the setting of not only there's also another show that takes place in Flip-a-delphia, Flip-a-delphia, Flip-a-delphia. How do we keep killing these segues?
I don't know.
It's just, wow, they are writing themselves at this point.
Yeah. Well, there is that guy writing it right there.
Yeah.
You can go home, Troy. We're fine.
It's Troy Van Leeuwen from Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Thanks, Troy.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Troy.
it.
It's
Appreciate the
cool.
side gig.
Yeah,
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia started in 2005, and it's now become the longest-running live-action sitcom of all time. The most most seasons ever. I believe we're at 15, 16 seasons, something like that. It's been renewed through a couple more even.
Yeah.
And it's an FX show. It's got a wide cast of characters. Some weirdos like Danny DeVito that fit right into this cast. He was introduced in season 2.
But it's beautiful.
It's such a beautiful thing.
It's such a good show.
Charlie Day, I just have so much appreciation for what he brings to the character of Charlie.
I love seeing that man thrive.
Yes.
Just in general.
He deserves it. And to have the break for all of these people like Rob McElhenney and Glenn Howerton and Caitlin Olsen, they're all incredible at what they do. And the best part about it all is that they all suck. To a degree, as human beings.
They're awful.
They're terrible. They're terrible.
You love seeing them get into stuff. Into
terrible
situations.
people, who cares? We can forgive it.
Exactly. It's the same reason why you can watch a horror movie filled with shitty people. You're like, you know what? These people are gonna die by the end of this anyway.
It's just so many episodes where they just get into these ridiculous things, like Dennis and Dee going on welfare.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we'll use all this for crack.
Yeah, and then they just get addicted to crack by the end of the episode.
Yes.
That's honestly the beauty, I think, in a lot of the early seasons.
Yeah.
Is they just perfected this starting point that seems innocent enough, or at least seems relatively safe enough, but then just seeing where they can take it.
Humble beginnings give way to absolute shit show madness.
Yeah, where they're, stealing gas in the back of a van.
Or they're locked in by the McBoyle brothers in their own bar.
Or they've kidnapped the food critic and are holding him, hostage.
And just increasingly making it worse and kidnapping more people.
Yeah.
there's so much. There's so many layers. And as the show has been on even longer, they've learned to adapt their humor without really taking away from the core of it at all. Like,
Absolutely.
it's still, like, they're still terrible people, but they
Yeah.
find ways to talk about current things and address issues. And I think what's really smart about it is the fact that, again, you're not looking at it like, oh yeah, I'm watching this because I'm looking for offensive jokes. You're
No.
looking at it from the lens of like, oh my god, these people are terrible.
Yeah, no,
and
they're awful
And it's
people.
calling out the hypocrisies of these awful things.
It's written in a way that it presents itself in a way that the writing gets to showcase its like full range.
Yeah.
You know, like there's the episode they did recently where Matt comes out.
Yes.
Like they tackle actual subjects in a show like this in a way that doesn't lose its humor.
No, not at all. There's always a way to find humor in that show and in the situations that they make it, while still a lot of times having a positive conversation about certain things.
Yeah, and it's great to see like a show that really tries to be like a cutting edge comedy.
Yeah, it toes the line of a lot of things.
Yeah, it does. It toes the line of a lot of things, you know.
You know, and you know what else toes the line between different things, between comedy and drama?
Are these two doctors?
Like I said, I couldn't do this all on my own. I'm no Superman. I got John here so we can talk about Scrubs.
I love everything about it, and we couldn't say, hey, you get that, I get this.
Yeah.
We had to share the file.
No, we had to share Scrubs because, like,
Number one.
It is a show that the minute I got into it, it was a problem because I couldn't stop watching it.
Yeah.
Like, as far as, again, a show that does, like, really good comedy and really good drama, it's a show that can even, like, blur them together in an episode seamlessly.
Yeah, you could be laughing one moment, crying the next, and that's not even like a, oh, yeah, that might happen. It's like it actually happens.
No.
Like, they will drop the hammer.
Yeah, and it gets me every time in those episodes.
Yes.
And I love seeing these characters grow, learn, have this relationship. You know, as far as, like, the sitcoms that have certain things like a will they, won't they plot and stuff. I feel like Scrubs does a lot of those incredibly well.
Yeah.
You know, their baby subplot's really good.
Yes, absolutely. They find a way to navigate every single hurdle that they get to. Like, hey, maybe we might get stuck here.
Yeah.
Let's level up
Yeah.
and do it in a way that makes sense as we're showing these people getting into their 30s,
Yeah.
coming out from being interns to being doctors that are taken more seriously and have expectations of them. But there's also such a silly tone to so much
Oh,
of it.
yeah,
and
absolutely.
I love how nerdy the show can get.
Oh yeah, no, the show is it's you can tell Bill Lawrence is a dork.
Yeah.
And he gels with this cast of dorks
Yes.
so very well. Two members in the cast weren't even TV people. They were musical theater people.
Yeah.
And they lend to the sort of kookiness that the show has going on.
It's
you
got bizarro editing, quick pace
Yeah.
cuts and everything, and then you've got the characters, Cox whistling and calling the
Yeah.
girl's name. Everybody is just on top of it, and they have the interactions, the chemistry. It fires at such a rapid pace sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and to put it into perspective, like yesterday we did like a Scrubs trivia, like meant for fans, and like we only collectively missed like one question,
Right.
out of like 30.
Yeah.
Like we really
We were neck and neck on that.
We were, but I mean, like it was just
You won.
Yeah, but it was just it was a good show. It's a great show.
I think Scrubs always killed it with the way that they made it feel like real life, even though there were zany situations
Yeah.
and there was hilarious moments in there. But they also packed in, like the way that Turk would talk about like struggling with his faith, or
Yeah.
maybe it was Laverne, that character, and the complicated situations that come with that.
Yeah.
And
Dr. Cox in general, a lot of the stuff that they put that character through.
that was a complex character.
Yeah,
On so many
it
different
was.
levels. And it talks a lot, I think, about, things like toxic masculinity and
Yeah.
the way that people would view Cox and how he couldn't let his guard down, but there was something under there that was hurt by something in the past and how they explored certain things.
Yeah.
So I think that Scrubs always, pretty much for the most part, that while there were off episodes, it was rare that they would have a total misfire, at least in the first 8 seasons.
Stop at 8.
Let's put the asterisk on there. The show ended there, right?
Yeah, don't watch the intern stuff.
It shouldn't
It's
have been season
not
9
good.
because it wasn't.
Yeah,
it was a separate thing.
It was its own thing. It's
Yeah.
a show with, and not even just the cast, the different way, the fact that it was just shot so differently. The fact that the music was really good in the show.
Music was on point. I discovered so many songs through
Yeah.
that show, and I think that Zach Braff, JD, in general, like the things that he was a part of, like Garden State. Great music. Being a fan of Scrubs, me sneaking out of my room at night to go watch Scrubs because they put on reruns from 11 p.m. to midnight every night on one of my local channels. Me doing that actually got me into Zach Braff, checking out his other projects, and finding music that I love through that.
Which is, I think, is a great layer to the show.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate a lot of what Scrubs just presented in general. As far as tone. The episode where, like, the rabies patient, or like the patient who got rabies, and he killed like 4 or 5 people.
And then How to Save a Life by the Fray comes in.
Yeah,
like
it was their way of making like a medical show moment, but it still didn't feel cheesy.
No,
because John C. McGinley sells the fuck out of that character.
And the thing is that they also don't milk it that often.
No,
it's not like they're trying to pull that card every episode or even every season necessarily. They do it. With Brendan Fraser as Ben, in that season when they eventually show up at the funeral.
To have like a Sixth Sense style episode is great, and they juxtapose that with like the musical episode where they have a song about poop.
Yes, entire song.
It's great.
Entire song.
It's just a great show, and that's why it had to be at this point in the list, because it's a show. It could easily be my favorite and John's
absolutely.
favorite comfort show.
The Janitor's fantastic. Hooch is crazy. JD and Turk are incredible. Their bromance, Eagle, many memorable.
The fantasy aspect.
Yes, Dr. Acula and JD's daydreams.
The daydreaming stuff in that show is just great. It was a show that had a lot in one nice pot. Ted's great. The Todd.
Yes, the Todd, of course.
So many running jokes and side characters.
Kelso even becomes better throughout the show.
Oh, yeah. I love Kelso's character by the end of it. And that's
Those
the
are
other
the
thing.
arcs.
There's no character by the end of that show where I'm like, fuck that guy.
No,
Every
not at all.
character in that show
You
I
understand.
adore.
You understand their intentions, where they were from, and how they developed to this point, and the fact that it's normal for them to start learning certain lessons where they do gel with each other better because they're learning to work together, and that's normal of any job, especially I'm sure in the medical field.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Just the fun fact that it's like as medically accurate as like the most medically accurate show.
I can't get into medical. I don't like medical dramas. It's never been for me. But Scrubs just always spoke to me because of the more realistic, not like we're trying to sell these over the top sappy moments every second.
Yeah.
And there's always like a love triangle at all times or whatever it might be. Like things that I don't necessarily care about. With JD and Elliot especially, you get really invested in them.
You do. They're like, every single turn their relationship takes, it's actually, I don't know, it's very entertaining to watch. I think like the introduction of Keith and Kim, like all of these other characters that throw a wrench in that. It's just like, man.
And the characters and the way that they explore their various anxieties and fears, I always thought was great too. Like, Elliot's afraid of certain things, JD's afraid of certain things, and, even Cox and Turk are afraid of certain things that they don't want to necessarily let on to, but they're willing to dive into that.
Yeah, and it's great.
I think once you've watched the show a couple of times, you can honestly, realistically just pick up at any episode you want.
And you'll know where it's going to go.
Yeah. You can start watching in season 2. You could start in season 5. Just throw it on. And that's why it's the ultimate comfort show. Because once you know it and those characters, you feel safe enough in that world to just go right back in and watch whatever you want.
Absolutely. And that's it. That's comfort shows.
That's the list.
Top
11.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite comfort shows? Let us know in the comments down below. Did you like our lists? Give this episode a like. Go follow John. Go subscribe to this guy.
And maybe watch our other video that we did together.
We did it. Speaking of comfort, speaking of TV.
It's adjacent to
that world. See, it's great.
Check it out. We talk about music videos.
Yeah, we talk about music videos. It's a good time. We talked about where music lived.
Yeah. It was the end of an era in many ways. Man, thank you for having me on for this. It was a lot of fun. I love to talk about TV, and I don't really get an avenue to do that very often. So it's awesome to talk about some of my favorite comfort shows.
Exactly. I'm glad that you got to do that. You got to branch out. Got to talk a little bit.
I got to spread my wings.
Spread your wings a little bit. But either way, we're gonna go. If you like this video, give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general notary content, be sure to subscribe.
Smash it.
Special thanks to my patrons. If you want to join the ranks to get early access stuff, exclusive stuff, help drive the community with polls, it's linked in the description. But you guys have good days, lives, and situations, and we'll see you another day.
Peace.